Hello, this is In the World News. I'll tell you about the war in Ukraine. The biggest showdown of the 21st century since World War II is approaching on the Eastern Front. The U.S. unanimously passed Lend-Lease Act to supply Ukraine with unlimited weapons. Russian troops fired cluster bombs at civilians on the evacuation route. Ukrainian artillery destroyed more than 40 vehicles in the Russian 35 Allied Forces vehicles fleeing north of Chernobyl to Belarus. North Korea has agreed to provide ballistic missile assistance to Russia. The Ukrainian army burned Russian armored troops in an instant. Let's go into more detail. In order to actively respond to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. took out the trump cards used in World War II and the Korean War. On April 8, U.S. media reported that the U.S. Senate unanimously approved the Lend-Lease Act 2022 to allow U.S. to quickly provide weapons to Ukraine on April 6 local time. Military experts predict this will prolong the war in Ukraine. The Lend-Lease Act was enacted by the United States in March 1941 to quickly support weapons, food, fuel, and other war supplies to Allied forces, including Britain and France. The bill is considered to have served as a game changer for the Allied victory over Nazi Germany by eliminating obstacles such as administrative procedures that the U.S. had to go through when it provided weapons to its allies, and allowing U.S. to supply the necessary weapons right away. Now let's look at the southeastern front of Ukraine. A large amount of armored equipment hidden in private warehouses by the Russian army for refurbishment was devastated by Ukrainian artillery fire in an instant. It was a unit that prevented the Ukrainian offensive in northern Mariupol. On April 6 local time, multiple sources in Washington said Ukrainian troops building a corridor from Zaporizhzhia province to Mariupol burned a battalion-class Russian combat vehicle in a warehouse in a rural village north of Mariupol in one shot. The Ukrainian artillery bombardment was in a small rural village in Donetsk. This is the Russian 163 Tank Regiment, where they hit about 45 tanks and armored vehicles in a warehouse and rested, and were beaten by Ukrainian troops in a flash. Ukrainian troops fired heavy artillery at the warehouse after identifying strange signs with drones. The Eastern Ukrainian Command says the shelling blew up a total of 45 T-72 tanks and infantry armored vehicles, BMP-3s, inside the warehouse. As a result, the remaining tank regiment around Mariupol has only 168 Tank Regiment left. So if Mariupol holds out a little longer, Ukrainian reinforcements will arrive. It is reported that Russia withdrew its troops from the northern and eastern fronts and gathered them in areas near Donbas, where they were preparing for a major offensive by bringing in new conscripts and mercenaries. Ukraine's general staff has confirmed the movement of large-scale Russian armored equipment from the eastern border of Ukraine. Ukraine's general staff said on April 7 local time that Russia has mobilized all of its new recruits reserve forces, naval land planes, tanks and armored vehicles to gather in Belgorod, almost completing its troop realignment and offensive preparations. So Russia is about to take all of Donbas by pushing Kharkiv and Izium with a general offensive. It is reported that Ukraine is also preparing for a thorough defense with a large armored corps. According to many foreign media, the battle will be the biggest showdown between Ukraine and Russia since World War II, where the fate of the two countries will be determined. At midnight local time on April 7th, the Ukrainian government declared emergency evacuation orders for residents of the three provinces of Kharkiv, Donetsk, and Luhansk in Donbas. The government has issued an emergency evacuation order for all residents in the area to quickly leave the area and evacuate to safe areas. Next, let's look at the southern front of Ukraine. In Mariupol, the Azov Regiment has been holding out for over a month. How was the Azov Regiment holding up in this area when they were isolated and running out of ammunition and supplies? The answer is as follows. Russia is not fully in control of the air in the region, and Ukrainian troops are flying low by helicopter to supply food, munitions, and ammunition. That's why I'm holding out until now. On the outskirts of Kherson, Russian troops were heavily damaged by Ukrainian artillery fire and retreated into downtown Kherson. Ukrainian forces are occupying the outskirts of Kherson and preparing for a city war. Russia's arms supply train entering Melitopol was stuck because Ukrainian Special Forces unit destroyed the railroad and cut off the military supply route in Melitopol, a key transportation hub in the south. So the supply route to the Kherson area has been blocked. and Russian troops in the area have been suffering from a shortage of ammunition and supplies since early April. As a result of the damage to the railroad, the passage to Mariupol was blocked, so troops and munitions from this area were cut off. In short, the supply route from Kherson to Melitopol to Mariupol was blocked. This has left Russian troops in the region suffering from a shortage of supplies. On the southern front of the Dnieper River, Russian withdrawal movements were seen everywhere. On April 7, local time, Melitopol Mayor Ivan Fedorov said Russian troops were plundering agricultural equipment in Zaporizhzhia province. They even plunder seeds, fertilizers, agricultural machinery, etc. at random. Zaporizhzhia is Ukraine's largest granary and world-class granary. If a soldier who participated in the war plundered the property of a civilian, it should not be forgotten that it is also a cheap way and a war crime. According to Reuters and AFP on April 8 local time, a Tokayu short-range ballistic missile fired by Russian troops hit a train station in Kramatorsk, in the northern city of Donetsk, killing at least 50 people and injuring 300 people. Residents trying to evacuate by train collapsed bleeding around the station. The Ukrainian government says it is one of the worst disasters since the February 24 war, based on the extent of civilian casualties caused by a single attack. Ukraine claimed that Russia used a mass kill weapon, called cluster bombs in the attack. President Volodymyr Zelensky said there were no Ukrainian troops around the train station at the time of the attack, adding, "There is no limit to the evil they commit. If you does not punish them, they will not stop," he said, asking the international community for help. See you next time. Thank you.